So everyone in this room is either a junior or a sophomore. A junior or a senior, right? Yeah. So everyone in here has had some experience with standardized testing, right? Whether it's the SAT, the ACT, the KC, the SBAC testing, or any other number of standardized tests that we've been subjected to over the years, you all know what I'm talking about when I use the vague-ish term standardized testing, right? So aside from your general dislike of filling in bubble sheets or sitting behind a computer for hours on end while the rest of us are subjected to hour and 45-minute long periods, what do we really know about standardized testing and why it exists? Because it can't possibly just be designed as a torture device for all the high school and middle school students in America. It has to have some purpose, right? So today we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of standardized testing and a couple of alternatives to our current system. So to get into the good, why do standardized tests exist at all? Like I said, most of us sitting here hate them. So why are we subjected to them every year? It all boils down to the fact that everything in the world is weird. When your parents tell you that you are 1 in a million, they're right. There's no one else exactly like you. But that goes for teachers, that goes for schools, that goes for classroom curriculums, that goes for the different experiences that you go through in high school and middle school. Someone in a second period AP Lit class and a third period AP Lit class might come out of the year with completely different things that they've learned, and they were taught by the same teacher in the same school. Imagine the difference between someone that's being taught in a school in Ventura versus a school in Washington. There's just no way to quantify that. So everything is weird, including high schools and including colleges. The colleges that you are applying to want you to have met certain standards and to know certain things when you come into their classroom environments, and they don't really know what you know based on just your GPA. So, because, like I said earlier, no two teachers are created the same. So we have to test for comprehension somehow, right? Not all A's are created equal. You could have a school like Foothill that is extremely rigorous in curriculum. You could have a school in the middle of Kentucky that gives everyone an A just for showing up. There's no way to test that, and so colleges don't put as much weight on the GPA as they want to, as they do on SAT scores or ACT scores, because of the fact that GPA is not uniform. So they need this way to even the playing field, so to speak. But here's the problem with that, or multiple problems really, is the SAT doesn't actually work. So the main problem is the inaccuracy of this testing that we are being faced with. The SAT doesn't accurately predict your success or your IQ score, and there's a low correlation between SAT scores and GPA in college. The problem that we're facing is that colleges are forced to put a lot of weight on your SAT score as opposed to your GPA, because there are things like grade inflation or unequal testing or unequal curriculum requirements. But this SAT score doesn't actually predict anything. A student that gets a 1200 and a student that gets a 600 are just as likely to receive a 4.0 in college as they are to get a 2.0 in college. No study has ever found a correlation between an SAT score and a GPA in college. And no study has ever found a correlation between your SAT score and your IQ score. So your actual problem-solving skills, your critical thinking, your ability to succeed in real-world situations is not actually indicated by this test, which colleges are placing all of their weight upon. So the SAT may provide some information, but it's not providing enough for the colleges to be placing as much weight on it as they are currently doing. And the other problem with the SAT is that it's such high stakes. So for a lot of students, they can only afford to take the test one time. And the problem with that is that if these colleges are placing as much weight on these tests as they say they are, which, according to a study by ABC News, which surveyed current and retired college admission officers, they stated that they rate the SAT scores much higher than your GPA when they're deciding college admissions. So when students are faced with this high level of stress and can only afford to take the test one time, it's extremely unhealthy and it's extremely unfair, because these students are basically being told that their entire future rests upon this one test. So if you're a teenager like me and you have your teenage stress spiral and it goes something like this: if I don't pass the SAT, I don't get to go to a good college. If I don't go to a good college, I don't get a job. If I don't get a job, I don't have any money. If I don't have any money, I can't have a family. Oh my God, I'm going to be a homeless, alone, dead person in 50 years, and no one is ever going to love me because of this stupid test that we're subjected to that actually indicates nothing. Does anyone else see a problem with that? So the other thing is that it's economically exclusive. So like I said, some students can only afford to take the test once, but other students can afford to take it 10 times. They can afford to buy test books. They can afford to attend summer intensive classes. But these SAT prep books, these summer intensive classes, and these retakes of the test are statistically proven to increase your SAT score. So if, like I stated earlier, college admissions officers are really weighing your GPA higher, this is basically saying that the more money you have, the smarter you are, the better college you can go to. It's directly correlating your economic standing with the level and caliber of university that you are permitted to attend, because they're going to rank your SAT score higher than any of the extracurriculars or the work ethic that you've shown throughout the years, any of the GPA that you may have worked your butt off to earn just because someone at another school was handed theirs. So this is an issue because it's basically leading to an end of it's limiting the amount of socioeconomic diversity on higher level college campuses and lower level college campuses because you're being sent based on your GPA, based on your SAT score, which directly correlates to your economic standing. So now to get into the really ugly portion of this. Like I said earlier, a lot of high school students go into their little stress spiral and they kind of freak out about everything based on this little tiny test, which is actually a big deal. So I want to show you this statistic. According to a study by the American Psychological Association, the healthy level of stress for a teenager is a 3.9 on a 1 to 10 scale. So basically, they surveyed a bunch of teenagers and they said, how stressed are you? How stressed have you been in the last month on a scale of 1 to 10? The healthy number would be an average of 3.9. The actual number was 5.8. We are almost double the healthy level of stress on a monthly basis, and this is just the average, meaning that most students are actually higher than this number, and they're just being balanced out by a few that are, able to take it easy for once. And a lot of students are like, oh no, that's just school, there's probably tests. That might have been the night before the SAT that they asked this question. But even in the summer, they were ranking a 4.6. So even during the summertime, when there's no school and no tests and no anything happening, people are still 0.8 higher than healthy stress level at all times. And this is insane. Also, as you can see on this bottom, it says 34% of teens predict their stress will increase in the next year. This statistic is 4 years old. So if you just take this number and bump it up a little bit, we're probably actually in the 6 range because every year the world is changing and people are getting more and more and more and more stressed out. People are perceiving their stress as being greater and more overwhelming every year. So we're actually an extremely stressed out population. So 1 in 3 students report that they feel overwhelmed, that they don't sleep due to stress, that they skip meals due to stress, they're depressed and or sad. So I'm not saying that the SAT is the sole cause of all of these issues. I'm just saying that it is a significant contributor, and the fact of the matter is that it's causing stress to students for no logical reason because it doesn't actually predict anything about our futures except for which colleges we get into, which is ludicrous in and of itself, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. So if 1 in 3 students are experiencing any or all of these symptoms, we need to be changing something about the way our society is running, and that could start with the standardized testing system. The other thing about this that's really ugly is profit. So the College Board is a not-for-profit company. That's great. But what about the other companies that profit off the SAT? What about the Princeton Review? What about the summer intensive classes? What about the local SAT tutors that charge anywhere from $50 to $200 an hour to teach you how to game the test and get a perfect score? What about those people who are profiting off of the amount of stress that we are putting ourselves under in order to avoid that stress spiral and avoid dying homeless and alone with no one to love you? Those people who are profiting off of the amount of stress that high school students are experiencing on a daily basis, that's the truly ugly thing about this situation, and that also needs to be changed and altered. So what are the alternatives? A lot of people are like, oh yes, well, you stood up here and you said we need standardized testing, so clearly we can't change anything. But that's not actually true. There are ways that we can change things, and one of the main ways that we can change is to IQ-based testing. So this is testing that, unlike the SAT, correlates more to your actual critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, real-world experience skills, and your ability to cope with everyday situations, as based on tests that mirror more the IQ test, but instead of just lots of pictures and pattern recognition, there's also reading comprehension and stuff like that. So these have worked in other countries. I'm going to show you an example of an IQ-based testing question, and I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to see if you can solve the problem. If you've seen this before, please don't whisper to your neighbor. I want an accurate representation of this. So I'm going to give you about, like I said, 20 seconds to see if you can figure out what this answer is. feel like I should have linked the Jeopardy theme song. Okay, who thinks they know the answer to this, that hasn't seen the problem before? Okay, did you think it was 87? Cool, so you guys are smarter than the seniors I surveyed a few weeks ago. If you didn't figure out the answer, or if you thought you knew it and you didn't think it was 87, I'm gonna enlighten you a little bit. If you look at this right here, it indicates that the car is pulling in from that direction, which means all of these numbers are upside down. So if you flip them in your head, it reads 86, blank, 88, 89, 90. So it's very simple. You might be wondering why I got this problem from it's not showing me real, from a first grade entrance exam in Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong, and I gave you that 20 seconds, it's not arbitrary. On the bottom of the original copy of this problem, it said, we recommend that you finish this problem in less than 20 seconds or move on. They expect students going into the first grade to be able to solve this in under 20 seconds. And the majority of high schoolers in America have no idea what's happening when I show them this picture. Again, that's a problem. So let's talk a little bit about Hong Kong. In worldwide education, Hong Kong is scoring above average in science, math, and literature. America, with our brand of standardized testing, is scoring barely average. I'm talking 1 point away from below average in literature and science, and below average in math by a significant amount. So the problem is that people in other countries are being tested in a way that stimulates their intelligence and tests their problem-solving skills, and we are being tested on how many times you can guess C and be right. And this is the result. We're dumb, and they're smart. So a lot of people also say, well, people in Hong Kong, they're being tested differently, so of course their scores are different. Well, those results, first of all, were on a standardized test, which was given globally. But the other thing is that the testing has to be relevant because teachers are forced to teach to the test. So you may think, well, the SAT is its own body, right? The schools run their whole thing, and the SAT just appears every now and again. That's fine. But that's not actually how it happens. The problem is that teachers are under a lot of pressure to send their students to high-level universities. If you send your student to a high-level university, they have to have a high SAT score. So if teachers are trying to teach to the SAT throughout the years, and that's why students are ending up with a lower caliber of education, is because the SAT is lacking in a lot of areas. There's very little information about philosophy, there's very little deep thinking. If you remember any of the rhetorical analysis pieces that you had to write about on the SAT, there was literally nothing there. It was just a bunch of random words, and they were like, yeah, find meaning in this passage. Whereas in other places, they actually have meaning in the passage, and then they ask you to analyze it. It makes a lot more sense. So there's this thing that was invented about 2 years ago called the Classic Learning Test. A company in America founded it. It's basically the epitome of what I've been telling you is the alternative. It's an IQ-based critical thinking test. It's like the SAT, but way better. And they have never had anyone achieve a perfect score, which you may be thinking, well, people just haven't, learned to game the system yet. But that's not what it is. It's the fact that it is all critical thinking. It's not just pattern recognition like the SAT. The SAT is basically the same every time you take it, just some of the numbers are switched. So if you just memorize the topics that are going to be on there, you can always get the right answer, you can get perfect scores. Hundreds of people get them every year. But with this test, there is no way to memorize what's going to be on there and to pre-prepare. It's all critical thinking, and you have to look and analyze. So they have a math section, a grammatical section, but then they also have a reading comprehension / critical thinking question section where they give you a passage which stimulates a lot of different areas of your education and has you synthesize them together. I know that's Mr. Fitz's favorite word, synthesis. So they want you to synthesize all of these different areas of your learning and study and pull together an answer that proves that you are actually going to benefit society in some way through your critical thinking skills. So 22 universities have already started accepting this test. 22 universities in America have already started accepting this test. And the teachers and the students of the high schools and the teachers and the students of the colleges that are accepting this test were surveyed. And the college admission officers, specifically at the colleges that were started accepting this test, have expressed their pleasure at the higher caliber student that they are receiving based on this test score than students that would have gotten a high SAT score. They are saying that the students that come in with high level scoring on this test is actually indicating that they are going to be successful, that they are going to benefit the college, that they are going to take the college into the future and do well, as opposed to the SAT, which indicates nothing. So there are many more than 22 colleges in America, but 22 is the first step. So the next step is that we have to be an informed public. We have to stop just blindly conforming to the SAT because that's the only option. It's not the only option anymore. We have to start fighting for making a difference, because right now the current system that we are in is setting us up for failure in the future, and we cannot sit by and accept that, because we are the future, and if we're setting ourselves up for failure, then, I mean, it is what it is. We're going to fail. So we have to start setting ourselves up for success and changing the way that we think about things, changing the way we evaluate things, changing everything about our perception of what should and shouldn't be a factor in going to college and, quote-unquote, becoming a successful adult. So that's my pitch for getting rid of the SAT. Standardized testing is negatively affecting all of the students in America, and we need to make change. So thank you.